Ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves, because what unfolded on the blue courts of Melbourne was not just another tense tennis moment. This was not a routine third-round match. This was a flashpoint, raw, volatile, emotional, that reminded the world why Novak Djokovic is one of the most compelling, controversial, and combustible figures the sport has ever known. Wherever you're watching from, good morning, good evening, and welcome to this special coverage. Tonight, we take you deep inside a moment that balanced on the edge of history. A moment where greatness, frustration, legacy, and consequence collided under the bright lights of the Australian Open. This was supposed to be business as usual for the 10-time Australian Open champion. Novak Djokovic, the king of Melbourne Park, the man who has turned Rod Laver Arena into his personal fortress, had arrived at the third round with one goal: move one step closer to an unprecedented 11th Australian Open title. But tennis, like life, has a way of testing even its most dominant figures. And on this night, Djokovic was tested, not just by his opponent, but by his own emotions. Across the net stood Botic van de Zandschulp of the Netherlands. Not a household name, not a top seed, but a competitor with grit, pride, and something to prove. Early on, the script appeared predictable. Djokovic asserted control, taking the first set with authority. His movement was sharp. His timing was precise. The crowd, as it so often does in Melbourne, leaned heavily in his favor. This felt like a match heading toward a routine conclusion. Then came the interruption. Van de Zandschulp began struggling physically, clutching his shoulder, clearly in discomfort. The tournament trainer was summoned. The Dutchman appeared on the brink of retirement. The pause stretched on. Djokovic paced. The rhythm broke. And suddenly, what looked like an inevitable finish became something far more complicated. Instead of folding, Van de Zandschulp fought back. Down 3-0 in the second set. Visibly hampered, he dug in. He began extending rallies. He began landing returns. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the momentum shifted. And with every game the Dutchman clawed back, frustration began to simmer on the other side of the net. This is where the story turns. Novak Djokovic has built his career on intensity. It fuels him. It sharpens him. But that same fire has, at times, burned dangerously close to the edge. After one missed shot by his opponent, Djokovic snapped. In a split second, emotion overtook restraint. He smashed the ball in anger, hard, fast, and without thought. The ball rocketed past a ball kid stationed near the net. Gasps rippled through the stadium. Time seemed to freeze, because everyone watching, players, officials, commentators, fans, knew exactly what that moment meant. They remembered New York. They remembered 2020. They remembered the U.S. Open default, when a similar act ended Djokovic's tournament instantly after striking a linesperson. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Had that ball traveled just inches differently, Novak Djokovic would have been disqualified from a Grand Slam for the second time in his career. His Australian Open, his sanctuary, would have ended not with a loss, but with a walk of shame. "Oh my goodness," exclaimed former British number 1 Tim Henman as the incident unfolded live on TNT Sports. His reaction captured what everyone felt: disbelief mixed with dread. Commentator Nick Lester echoed the sentiment, noting the visible tension between Djokovic and the chair umpire in the aftermath. Eye contact was avoided. Words were unnecessary. The message was clear. Novak had escaped by the narrowest of margins. This was not just a warning. It was a reminder. At 38 years old, Djokovic is no longer just playing matches. He is playing against history, against time, against expectations. Every action, every outburst, every misstep is magnified. And this moment raised an uncomfortable question. Has he truly learned from the past, or does the same volatile edge still threaten to undo him? As the match continued, the drama did not relent. Djokovic regained focus, but the tension lingered. The third set brought yet another twist. An injury scare after Djokovic took a tumble, briefly silencing the crowd and adding another layer of uncertainty to an already chaotic encounter. He rose, continued, and eventually pushed forward, but the aura of invincibility had cracked. Beyond the court, the debate ignited instantly. Tennis legend John McEnroe has openly questioned Djokovic's chances this year, suggesting that the Serbian may no longer be capable of defeating both Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner back-to-back in a slam. It's a bold claim, and one that has divided the tennis world. Former British number 1 Greg Rusedski pushed back strongly. Speaking on his Off Court Cuts podcast, Rusedski urged fans and analysts alike to resist the temptation to write Djokovic off. "I thought it was really interesting to hear McEnroe's comments," he said. "We all feel that way, but look at the facts. The facts, indeed, are staggering. 100 wins at the Australian Open, a milestone achieved in 3 of the 4 Grand Slams, a feat almost unimaginable in the modern era. 400 match wins at major tournaments. Numbers that don't just suggest greatness, they scream it." Rusedski pointed out that while concerns have been raised about Djokovic's health, specifically his sore neck, this is a man who has mastered his body like few others in sports history. "That's why he's the GOAT," he said plainly. At an age when most players are long retired, Djokovic is still outperforming nearly the entire top 100. At 38, he's playing better than 97 or 98 players in the world, Rusedski emphasized. He saved energy. He looks sharp. Don't ever discount a legend, especially one with this record in Australia. And that's the paradox of Novak Djokovic. He is both vulnerable and formidable, flawed and historic, capable of moments that threaten to derail everything, and moments that remind you why he has rewritten the sports record books. Melbourne has been his kingdom, but kingdoms are not maintained without challenges, and sometimes the greatest threats come from within. What happened against Van de Zandschulp will not be remembered for the scoreline alone. It will be remembered as a moment where Djokovic stood inches away from disaster, a moment that exposed the razor-thin line between passion and penalty, a moment that could have changed the course of his final Australian Open campaign. And yet he survived. He moved on, still standing, still dangerous, still chasing history. As the tournament progresses, one thing is certain. Every step Novak Djokovic takes from here will be watched with heightened intensity. The shots, the reactions, the body language. The legacy is no longer just about winning. It's about control, composure, and proving that even at this stage of his career, he can master not only his opponents, but himself. Because in Melbourne, legends are not just crowned by titles. They're defined by how close they come to the edge and whether they pull themselves back in time. This is Novak Djokovic, still here, still fighting, still walking the tightrope between brilliance and chaos. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over.